And as somebody who has a disability, the cuts they made did affect me, and the bills still need to be paid.
Hello and welcome back to the Sassy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Tans, and today we have Gemma, who has been on the podcast before, who's coming back just to give us an update, and I'm super excited to have her back to find out what she's been up to. It's been, I think, roughly about a year or coming up to a year since we last spoke. So yeah, it's really exciting to find out what's been happening. Welcome, Gemma. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure.
Great. So I wonder if we could just start by, a lot can happen in a year, right?
It can indeed. It can indeed.
So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, since we last spoke, what's been happening for you? Have there been any changes? What's been happening?
What's been happening in my life? I work. I work and I work and I work, and sometimes it feels like that's all I do. So yeah, big milestone I had was I've now been in my flat for a year.
Ooh.
So I bought it last May, and then I hit that year sort of marker, and I kind of looked back and I was like, I had photos and I was like, well, this is what it was like when I moved in, and this is what it's like now. And it was like, ooh, I've actually done quite a lot in this place since then. So that was really exciting to look back at and see like the progress that's been made. And
oh my gosh, congratulations. Actually, that does bring me back to you saying, I remember you saying that was going to be something that was in the pipeline. And so you've done it. Wow, Fantastic.
I love this place. I mean, it's small, but it's mine and I don't care.
Yeah, good. That's a milestone, to be able to own your own property, to have your own space that you can go into, and to say that this is mine.
I mean, it brings its own struggles and I have a mortgage and I have bills and I have all these things that I have to pay, and you have to pay them. I mean, you have to pay all the bills, but if I don't pay them, I would lose my house. So that's probably why I work and more work.
Oh, so it sounds like very grown up. You've taken...
Yeah. I was having a conversation with some friends about a month or so ago, and we were like talking about Hoovers, and it was, we're so old now, we get excited about like Hoovers and...
Well, I don't know. You need a good Hoover.
Yeah, but you know, when you're like 15, 16, it's like, Hoover? I don't need one of those. When Dad do that, that's nothing to do with me. And now it's like, ooh, look at that one. It's got this special feature and I can do it. Like I've got my heated drying rack, and that's like...
Ooh, very grown up. I like it. Which Hoover did you decide on in the end?
Oh, I just got this one. I got a cheap one. I don't really care that much. As long as it cleans my floor, that's all I'm bothered about. But yeah, the heated drying rack was more important.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And apparently, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I did a bit of reading up on them, and apparently they are low maintenance in terms of energy, and so you can dry your clothes and not worry about the electricity bill.
Because it's all open plan, so if it's in the living room, it heats the living room.
Oh wow!
I don't need to put the heat on.
Oh, that's bonus! I love it. Oh, amazing. So you've said you've got your flat; it's now your space. But then with that comes that added responsibility, and you talked a little bit about you're having to work a bit more. So how's that going?
I mean, it's the cost of living. It is what it is. It's something that, particularly with the changes that came in sort of around March, April, and as somebody who has a disability, the cuts they made did affect me, and the bills still need to be paid. And with less money coming in, then you've got to go out and find more. And then it's kind of like a catch-22, because I am disabled, so working more isn't actually beneficial, but I need the money. So from a mental health perspective, I've struggled because there was no other option. And there still is no other option right now, because I'm trying to get that fixed, but it's not happen overnight. So yeah, from a mental health perspective, the cost of living rising and everything else rising, and then saying, okay, well, you can't have all this money. I've struggled greatly.
It's a really difficult thing that everyone's having to process, where instead of having more, you now have less, but the responsibilities haven't decreased in any way. And it feels like there's a whole unfairness around it. And those voices are getting diminished in some ways, and you're having to figure out what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? Which is exactly what you're describing, and how that then impacts your mental health, which is something that should be taken into consideration. So when you say it's been impacting your mental health, can you tell me a little bit more about what have you seen in terms of some of the real struggles that you're having?
I mean, it's kind of like, well, do I buy food this month? Not that I'm ever going to starve. Do I buy food this month, or do I put the heating on for a bit longer? Do I have a social life and use money for that, but then I have to give something else up? And I mean, that's adulting. It's, in a nutshell, it is adulting. Yeah. But when something you have to give up might be heating or buying food, that's not adulting. It shouldn't be. And I know there's a lot of people who are in a much worse position than I am and are having to make those decisions of, do we buy the kids new shoes because theirs are starting to fall apart, or do we pay the water bill? I am fortunate that it is just me. I don't have anybody else I need to worry about. I don't even have pets. I would love one, but I can't afford it. So I do feel for all the families out there who are maybe haven't used food banks and had never done so before. And it's great that the food banks exist. And wherever possible, if I can donate to a food bank, I will, because I know there's other people in worse positions. But it's like, so then your mental health suffers because you're not having a social life, because you're not going out anyway, you're not spending time with people. It's a little bit isolating, and it's trying to find ways to do things for free. But there's just, in this world, there's not a lot that comes for free. I mean, there is things, obviously, just spending time with someone. Yeah. Sometimes my friend and I only live 10 minutes from the beach, so sometimes my friend and I will just go there. Yeah. And that doesn't cost any money, really. So yeah, it's a struggle. It's kind of like, well, when is this going to get better? When is this going to change? Where am I? It's that idea of being one emergency away from being completely in trouble. I mean, I'm still here and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing the thing, but it's just a constant worry of, okay, so when's this money coming in? When's that money coming in? How am I going to pay that bill? Okay, well, I can put that one off till then, and then I can do this then. And I'll just eat through the freezer this month. I don't have to worry about, but then you're not getting your fresh fruits and vegetables. I have frozen, so it's not the end of the world, but it's just that kind of thing that if, kind of didn't want to go on a rant about the government, but the government aren't helping the situation. There's little things they could do to make it better, and they're just not. And I don't think it would be any different which party it was in. This is not like a rant against Labour or Conservative. I think it doesn't really matter which party would be in power. I think the situation would still be the same, but they're just not taking into account what people are saying and how the decisions they're making are affecting people's mental health.
So much of what you've just talked about, and I know I hear you don't want to go on a rant, but there is a root of a problem. And so skirting around the root of the problem isn't going to solve the problem. And if the people on the ground are the ones who are experiencing it, their voices need to be heard in order for anything to change. Now, like you said, you don't have to worry about anyone apart from yourself, but there are families out there. There are other people who are struggling, who are in similar situations, who is impacting in a different way. And there sounds like a need more for survival than being able to thrive. And that whole idea of having that autonomy to choose, that it shouldn't be a case of you're going to choose to eat or heat their home, because both are needs that need to be met. And so there's a real disconnect between the decisions that are made on behalf of the people, but without actually hearing from the people themselves. Or even if it's a case of hearing, because I'm sure there's been lots of questions and surveys done, but what happens to that data? What happens to those voices? For someone to be heard, it's to then see a fruit of something that they've requested in that sense. But I get the feeling that, I see that that's not what's happening here.
I mean, I have friends who got kids. I personally don't have any. That's just my choice. But I know I have friends who do, and they'll go hungry to feed their kids. With the kind of money that they earn, that shouldn't be happening. But it is, because everything else is so expensive. And minimum wage might have gone up, but that doesn't mean everybody else's wage is obligated to go up. It should. A lot of businesses do that. Some don't. Yeah. So everything's going up and minimum wage is going up, but they're staying the same. So then they may need new shoes themselves, but they've put their kids first. The kids need to be warm, or they're helping elderly parents who need to be warm. So adults sort of around sort of myself and your age, they'll go hungry. They won't get what they need. That's in turn then hurting their mental health, because they're putting themselves last.
Yes, of course. And when we talk about well-being and mental health, we're encouraging people to take that seriously. And if it's a case of, well, it's between the mental health of my child or my elderly parents above mine, then that's going to again undo the messages that are trying to be positive messages, which is about looking after your own mental health so that you can then support someone else. So again, there's a mental health crisis. We're very much aware of that. But it feels as though from everything we're talking about here, that on one hand, they're sticking plasters on it by saying, let's talk about mental health, let's do something about it. But then things like having your needs met, basic needs being met, that's going to affect someone's mental health. So if you can't help them even at the point of meeting their basic needs, how can you then help them to help themselves in that sense? And it's quite a frustrating thing to see and for people to experience. And for you to even say, these are people who are working, but still they've been left in a position where they're not able to meet their needs. So some might end up saying, well, what's the point? What are you working for if you can't meet all of your needs, even the basic needs?
I mean, even if those basic needs were being met, and for some people they are, but a lot of people they aren't, even if they want access to mental health services, those services are being cut. They're less available and more people are trying to access them, so the wait times are longer.
Yeah.
So people are just saying, oh, well, I'll just forget it, because they don't want to have to wait a year. And I get that. And I know the NHS is underfunded, which is another problem in itself. And there's lots of private therapists out there, but you've got to have the money to pay for the private therapist.
Indeed.
So the NHS cutting access or cutting funding for those mental health services, and I have been reading, I hope I'm wrong, that they're about to be cut even more. And they know there's a mental health crisis, they know they're contributing to it, but they're then going to take those services away and make it harder to get them. And it's like, I don't quite understand that reasoning.
Yeah, there is a huge disconnect here, isn't there?
People are crying out for it. So like you say, it's all those things where we say, you know, put yourself first, you can't pour from an empty cup, etc., and ask for help if you need it. There are people who can listen. There are people who can listen, but you've got to wait 6 months before they'll hear you. So I know on my page I'm constantly putting out, well, my VA Michael constantly puts things out about that, of there's helplines you can call, there's this you can do, there's this you can do, but they can't. They can't, because there's so many people trying to use those, there's nobody there to listen. Sometimes it feels like I'm sending that message out to avoid, or a group of people who just go, okay, and because they're going, well, we've tried that, it didn't work. I wish there was more I could do. I wish there was more ways I could help. I wish we're putting those messages out and thinking a lot of people are going to look at that and just kind of go, whatever, right? That's not possible. And for a lot of them, it's not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a thing. That's also, it's like, how do I then, as somebody who is an advocate, I believe, for mental health, how do I then change that message to make it current? Instead of just saying the same tired things over and over again, how do I make it current for this situation so that people are actually going to get some value from it?
Is there an idea that you might have around that? What are your thoughts?
It's something we're working on to try and think of. Sometimes in the messages, the posts we put out, it's, we know you've heard this before. We know it's difficult. We're struggling too. The message is still important.
Yes.
But we understand that some of you, it doesn't apply or anymore. And then it's kind of like just working out ways to think, okay, well, what can we do to help? We can't, if we're saying find somebody to talk to, but there's nobody to talk to, okay, so how can we help with that? Find another avenue for you. So, I mean, we've been looking, and again, this is Michael's idea. It's not the best idea. I just do the writing part.
It's good. It's a partnership. I like.
Partnership. He came up with the idea of kind of making these printables, and I know there's kind of a lot going around. And it's, okay, we know you can't talk to somebody, but here's this printable, and you can write it down for yourself. So even if you can't just talk to somebody, you're getting the thoughts out of your head. You haven't got somebody to help you work through those emotions. So he used this, try and help you do it, sort out what those emotions are.
Yeah.
So that's something that we've been working on for a few months, and we're going to be hopefully getting out soon. And there is a lot of printables on the market. So whether or not mine's different or not, I don't know. But at least it's something that I think we're doing.
Yes.
Just to try and give people that outlet that can't get anywhere else.
And that sounds amazing. What you're talking about here is strategy. You're creating a strategic approach to the problem. You might not have the answer to the problem, but at least you're giving some tools that they can use to help themselves. Because you're right, statutory services are overrun. And the waiting list, by the time someone gets to the front of the waiting list, they would have already had several crises, and they might not want that support by the time they get to speak to someone. There is also, it feels like there's a nature of, like, I guess non-humanism, or is that even a word? Like,
Yeah.
It is now. Yeah, that sort of lack of connection, which is what we thrive on as humans, is what we need. So when you say they're trying to connect with someone and there's no one there, the messaging says that there should be, and absolutely you're right, there should be. However, there's a disconnect in the sense of, where are these people to connect with you as a human being? The sense of community is always a good place to be. Even if it's an online community, it's a space where people can come together and say, I'm struggling too, I'm seeing you, you're seen, you're heard in this space, can often give that opportunity of, I'm not alone in this. I
mean, I have my issues with social media, but that is a good side of it, that there are communities and there are people, I'm terrible at the doom scroll. So I've TikTok or my age Facebook, so I'm on Facebook Reels, and you just end up scrolling forever and ever, and it doesn't stop. And then 3 hours later, you're like, what happened? Why is it done now? I don't know what happened. And there's a lot of creators out there, and sometimes it'll be just like a 5-second, video, and it'll be you matter, just things like that. So that is the good side of it. And you have these, like you say, you have groups and forums, and somebody is there to listen. They're not a professional. Maybe they can't help you work through it, but at least they're listening. Yes. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And for a lot of people, that's enough. For a lot of people, just knowing that there's somebody they can say that to, who'll go, yeah, I see you, I hear you, I understand. I don't have any advice, but I see you and I hear you. And sometimes people just want to know they've been heard, like you said. But some people, that extra help, and it's just not there. And like you said, by the time it comes around, it's either too late, they go, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I've either done it myself, or I can't do it. You can't help me anymore. Years ago, and this was like long before this crisis, I contacted the crisis team myself. It took them 2 days to come out.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's not good enough.
And I mean, that was before now.
Wow.
So I dread to think what it would be like, how long it would take now.
Well, I'm hoping it would have improved, not gone the other way. But
I hope that as well, but with less people, I don't know.
And how does one determine what a crisis is in that sense? Because each person, their crisis point would look different from someone else's. So who gets to determine? That person's calling and saying, I'm in crisis, so therefore who then gets to determine whether they should see them straight away or give it 2 days?
I mean, with the whole, I know when 111 changed, so you can now ring for mental health support as well.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, how trained are those people in mental health? And it's like you say, how trained are they enough to know, like you say, how much help they need and how soon? I hope it's a lot. And I don't know what their training is. I don't know who's employed by them. Are they counsellors? Are they psychologists? I don't know. Is it just somebody answering a phone who's had a little bit of training? But that's a worry for me as well. And I don't know if I would ever ring 111 for that.
That's interesting. I would imagine that at least their first aid, mental health, first aid trained, I believe that's mandatory in situations like that, because you don't know who you're going to get at the other end of the line. But I absolutely agree. Like, there's learning something or learning to spot the signs, which is kind of, again, the outward appearance of things. But then those who are more fine-tuned, they're able to pick up on the subtleness of things, then give you more information than what someone's actually presenting to you in that moment. So again, there's so much to be said around that. But it's interesting that you should say, I don't know if I'd actually ring them. 111 is obviously the national one, but there are a few other organizations that are specifically for mental health crises. So those maybe, I'm assuming, are more tailored towards that support. But if someone's in crisis, I guess they'll be ringing anywhere in that sense to get that support.
I mean, when this whole thing kicked off earlier in the year, we came up with the idea, and we have pinned to the top of the Instagram page list of different helplines, different things. So there's like a debt helpline, there's a list, a website, or somewhere to, is it a website? It's somewhere to find like different food banks in your area. It's for LGBTQ. We've got, Michael went out and did a lot of research and got all those helplines. So they are there. And if I was going to call somebody, I would probably do that. I would call a specialist. I wouldn't call 111.
Yes, of course.
I would ring Samaritans or Mind or use Calm or Shout, that kind of thing. Just throwing those out there.
No, absolutely. And it's necessary. I think finding that tailored support is important rather than a blanket support, and that you might not. Because even picking the phone up and making that phone call comes with its own sort of connotations. You might feel anxiety or shame or guilt, whatever. They need to be able to hold you in that space. And when you leave that phone call, there should be some sort of alleviation, even if it's for a moment. And feeling like, again, like you've connected with a human and you feel some understanding. They might not fully understand your situation. However, you need to actually feel that there has been some transaction completed in that relationship at that time. Finding the right place is definitely essential. And it sounds like what you've done with the Art to Survival is amazing. It's, you've created this blog space for people to go. It is on social media, which most people access, but instead of reading something that perhaps doesn't fill your cup, you've created this space where they can go, they can get the information, and they can also get some space to really express or find some tools that might help.
That's the aim. There's a lot of people out there like me, and if I can have even a little impact on one or two people, then my job's done.
Yes.
And I'm about that. I get followers, I get comments, I get messages, and that's really nice to see that somebody read maybe one of my blogs or someone on my post and went, I needed that today, thanks very much.
Oh, so you are making that impact.
And it's just trying to work out, what do people need right now? Because I think you said earlier, you have to pivot and adapt. And my aim is still the same. My aim is to support people in mental health. The means of doing it needs to fluctuate. You need to adapt and you need to pivot and you need to work out what do people need right now, because it might not be the same as 6 months ago. And in 6 months' time, it might be a different thing again. So it's listening to people and seeing what they're saying and hearing what they're saying. And they're saying, oh, well, I need this. Okay, let me see how I can get that for you. Just even trying to anticipate, to look at the situation that's coming and go, okay, what issues might people have so that I can have that in place before they need it. If you want to sum up that's kind of how it's been. Learning to pivot and adapt to this changing situations. Because I mean, it started before March. It started last year. You could see the writing on the wall kind of coming in and, oh, they're going to do this, oh, they're going to do that. We don't know. I mean, it was March when they all brought all those changes in, was devastating for a lot of people. But yeah, the writing was kind of already there. That's been my year of thinking, okay, how can I protect my mental health with the changes that are going to come up? How can I then adapt my business and my message to continue to support people in the way that I have been? So I've probably been more involved in politics than I ever have in my life.
Well done you. I usually try and avoid it like the plague, but I think this is the most I've talked, and it feels like I've said a lot today. But you are right in that sense. It is about pivoting and it's about moving with those changes, because there are changes that will happen whether you like them or not. But it's how do you adapt to best manage? And this is what the conversation really needs to be about, is empowering people to understand that, yes, sometimes there's not much you can do about the changes that will happen, but what tools can you equip yourself with to help to manage the change as it happens, so it doesn't feel like it's like you've just been bulldozed with the change.
I mean, some people will have been, because some people either don't notice or don't want to notice. I even understand that approach, because sometimes it's easier just to go, no,
it's not here. No, can't see it.
Everything will be fine. If I can't, I'm not looking at it, so it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And for those people, they will have gone, oh no, what happened?
Yeah.
And maybe it's for those people that I exist.
And we each manage our mental health. We learn different strategies to manage our mental health. Some might say that some of them are unhealthy. However, if it's working in that moment for you and then it's working, it's all you have, and fair enough. But there definitely needs to be a conversation had about what other tools can you learn. And it's not necessarily on learning the tools that you're using, but what else can you add to your tool belt so that you can have more of a variation as the changes take you from different angles in that sense. But avoiding has always been one of those strategies that people can come to very quickly, but there's no judgment there whatsoever.
I've done it myself in the past. I think we've all had moments when we go, I don't want to think about that right now, so I'll wait and see what happens when it comes.
Absolutely. But making informed decisions. So the more information that you have, the more informed you are, and you can make better decisions based on that. It might not be exactly how you want it to be, but at least you feel like you've moved along a little to lessen the impact. It's been fantastic catching up with you, and just finding out what it's been like for you, but how much Art to Survival has also changed, and it's adapting with its audience and the new challenges that are coming up. And it sounds, from what you've said, there's a lot of other things you're doing in the background to help people to start to understand and advocate a bit more for the changes that's happening, that's impacting their mental health and well-being. I'm just wondering, as a final message in for those who are still yet to come across you and the work that you do, as well as those who might need just that bit of encouragement to know that they're not alone. and they're held, what would you say?
I see you. I hear you. You're not alone. I hear what you're saying.
That's very powerful. Very powerful. Because we all have stories and we all want to be seen and heard. Fantastic. Oh, I just want to say thank you so much. I will definitely be keeping in touch. I'm always on your page and having a look at your amazing posts. And I invite our listeners to also do that. So if you want to find out a bit more about the work that Gemma's been doing, please check out her Instagram page, Art to Survival. She also has a website, The Art to Survival, where you'll find lots of tips on managing your mental health and well-being, and lots of developing strategies in the pipeline as well. Thank you once again, Gemma, for coming on the podcast once again and just giving us an update. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you to our listeners. You have been listening to the Sassy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Tans. And until next time, do take care and remember your health and well-being matters.